So Jesus borrows Peter's boat so he can teach more easily the crowd that is on the shore. There is actually a physics that way if you have still water and you speak over it, it actually amplifies your voice. And when he had finished, he gave an unusual instruction to Peter. He said, "Put out into deep water and lower your nets for a catch." Now, Peter is an experienced fisherman. And Jesus was a carpenter. So he mentioned to Jesus they had fished all night long and caught nothing. Nevertheless, Peter agreed to put his faith in the Lord and to obey him. And the catch of fish was, as recorded, so large, it threatened to not only tear the nets of two boats, but to sink them. Quite a marvelous catch. Now, what moved Peter, a fisherman, to follow the advice of a carpenter who did not know that you don't fish during the day, you fish at night? Well, this is not the first time they've encountered each other. The night before, the day before, Jesus enters Peter's house and heals Peter's mother-in-law of a fever. And then outside Peter's door all night long, people are coming from near and far for Jesus to pray over them, heal them, even cast out evil spirits. So Peter is noticing that when Jesus speaks, he speaks with authority and with power, and things happen. Good things happen. Okay? And also, who's in the boat with Jesus as he's teaching? Peter. So he's hearing Jesus teach and preach. Undoubtedly, that touched his heart and mind in quite a deep way. So it would appear that Peter would go against his better judgment and knowledge and experience when he put out into deep water and lowered his nets. But from a faith perspective, he chose to invest himself in this Rabbi, Jesus, who speaks with authority. Now, the relationship between Peter and Jesus and the other disciples to-be is just beginning. Peter and James and John didn't know Jesus is true God, true man. They didn't know that he would suffer, die, and rise for not only the salvation of the Jewish people, but for their salvation as well. They didn't know that the apostles they would become would be the foundation upon which Christ would build his church. They didn't know that. They just had encountered this man, this prophet, this person of Jesus, such that he captivated them. And they freely left everything and went to follow him. They left their livelihood, must have said goodbye for a time to their families, give the wife a hug and say, "We'll be back sometime," to his kids, and off they went. Again, it wasn't dogma and doctrine, it was the person of Jesus, and off they went. Now, you and I know a lot of stuff about Jesus. We know it's true God, true man. We know it's the Paschal mystery, suffering and death and resurrection. We know the church exists for 2,000 years. We know the power of the sacraments, his word. We can encounter him there, okay? We know all that stuff. We have 2,000 years of dogma, teaching, and sacramental life, etc. But what's behind it all? What's behind it all is the person of Jesus Christ, who wants us to encounter him personally. Yes, true teaching, worship, it's all part of it, but behind it is the encounter with the Lord Jesus, without which none of this stuff makes any sense. It's empty of meaning. So it's the encounter with Christ. That's what moved those disciples. Didn't have any theology of who he is. Just, it's him. It's he. He speaks with the power and authority. He pushes back the power of Satan. He works God's will. Okay. So Jesus invites us to put out into deep water and lower our nets for a catch. I think the first deep water he wants us to go out into, or put it out into, is he, I guess I should say. It is to invest ourselves, as did Peter and the apostles, into him, into a personal relationship with him. Jesus offers all this truth and says, do you receive it? Do you follow me? It's always a personal invitation. So I'm praying at this Mass, we make a personal response. Yes, Lord, I want to be your disciple. I am your disciple. I want to be more your disciple. I'm thinking about it. Yes, I'll be your disciple, wherever we are in the journey of discipleship, to make that decision with the help of the Spirit. That's the first putting out in the deep water. And once we encounter him and he asks us to put out into other deep waters, we'll do it because we saw what he did. Peter didn't throw the net in the water and all of a sudden nothing happened. Amazing things happened because Peter put his trust in the word of Jesus, in the person of Jesus, who was always faithful and trustworthy. So how about just putting out into deep water once we've encountered him, to go down to Pittsburgh at a Planned Parenthood center and join the prayer vigil. That's putting out into deep water, okay? Or sharing your faith story, my faith story, with someone else, maybe a family member or a classmate or a work colleague. That puts out into deep water. Especially, if we sense the Lord saying do it, he'll be there to help us do it. How about organizing parents to advocate for a practice-free, game-free Sunday morning so families can go worship without the conflict of sports? That's putting out into deep water. How about approaching your spouse about seeking help in healing the wounds you have inflicted upon each other in your marriage? That's deep water. How about seeing a crying need in the community or parish and volunteering to address it? I want to do something about that. Good. Tell me what you're doing. Go. To change your job, even though it means less income, but allows more time for your family. That's going out into deep water. So all kind of ways we go out into deep water. But we need to have an encounter with Christ first because we know he won't let us out there, let us hanging. He would never do that. If he calls us to go into deep water, he is with us. It'll bear much fruit. I just gave a few examples off the top of my head. Okay. Some of them may or may not have spoken to you. But Jesus says to you and to me, put out into deep water, and lower your nets for a catch. This week, consider, where is your deep water where Jesus wants you to go? Where he wants me to go?